you're going to share some stuff on screen with us, I think. Becky, would you like to take it away, please? And tell us what it is.
Well, I'm not going to say very much. I'm actually going to just switch the first 4 minutes or so of our film on, because I think we've all had a bit of an intense discussion, and it'll give you an idea of what the project's about, and you'll hear a bit of the opening of the piece. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm just checking I've shared sound. And oh, hang on. Bear with me 2 secs. It helps if I select the right screen. Here we go. Let me know if there's any problems.
Loud and clear.
To begin.
Words. Sonnets. Landscape. Rivers. Sounds. Rhythms.
Exploring Grasmere and encountering Wordsworth in his poetry at his home in Dove Cottage.
Inspiration, finding our imaginations to think, learn and create something unique and new.
Our own music and poetry for an orchestra to perform with us.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm one of the young composers working on the Encountering Wordsworth project. We are here in Ambleside in the Lake District today. A group of young composers from across Cumbria have been looking into the life of William Wordsworth, where he came from, that landscape and surrounding, and how we think about that. Our friends Manchester Camerata are going to be performing our brand new piece of music.
Hi, I'm Laura Bowler and I'm a composer, and I've been working alongside Dan Fox with young composers and students from primary schools and students from the Soundgate School in the Cumbria district on the Encountering Wordsworth project. This amazing project has brought all of these people together to create a piece that celebrates the poetry of Wordsworth. We began by having an incredible residential that was at Dove Cottage, and we explored the poetry of Wordsworth, and we also went on a sound walk during that time, and we recorded lots of different sounds from nature and from the river with Dan Fox. And then we did an improvisation in which we kind of worked with all of these recordings to create kind of soundscapes, and we also wrote our own poetry as well. One of the really exciting parts of this creative process was when I was working with the young composers, their creativity was utterly astonishing. And so what we did is we took just snippets of the Wordsworth text and we used those as starting points, and then they all went off into groups and they created different melodic lines, harmonic progressions to go with those melodic lines, rhythmic ideas, and then all of these different sections that all of these young composers created together collaboratively. I put together using orchestration for the amazing Manchester Camerata Orchestra. Today, we were lucky enough to be able to hear it for the first time live with the orchestra, and we had one of our fantastic young composers here singing with us as well, and it's been a truly joyous experience.
So I'm just going to leave it there, tantalisingly. There's just a little bit of the opening of the piece, so I can tell you a little bit more about what we did and how we came to. I'd love to just be able to sit and play you the whole film, but it's about 25 minutes, so a lot longer than we've got this morning. Bear with me because I've just realised I haven't plugged my computer in. School girl error. I don't really want to run out of charge midway through the meeting. So Encountering Wordsworth is part of our long-term partnership with Cumbria Music Education Hub. I think some of you will have heard me earlier in the year talking about our Share Sound digital project. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a bit of a composition focus in the work with a Cumbria calling kind of theme, working with different groups of young people in different places in Cumbria, writing music about the place they live and things that things that are unique to that place. Wordsworth has been our biggest project to date. We've been working with the Hub and also with Wordsworth Grasmere offices partners. And we set out to kind of have a real inclusive approach to it, involving different groups of people doing different things and a broad range of artists. So we using that kind of range of stimulus that you saw at the beginning of the film. So we had a really pre-COVID wonderful day at Dove Cottage with the young composers in November 2019 before life changed. And Dove Cottage was empty and we had this tour and it was empty, it was dark, and I remember the person taking us around saying, well, this is pretty much what it was like when the Wordsworths moved in. They arrived in the autumn, not much of a fire, no furniture. It was really kind of, atmospheric really. And I think that feeling that the young composers got from that tour really sort of influenced the music they came out to write. So obviously we worked with Laura and we wanted to bring in a sort of digital sound artist to work alongside her, and we've had the pleasure of working with Dan Fox on this, whose role has morphed through the project due to COVID, and he took us on a sound walk and around Grasmere, chucking microphones in different places. We loved the drip of the fountain in Grasmere. That was a particular highlight. It was really tuneful. So we used all those pieces and we explored the poetry, wrote some poetry ourselves, and all the music was very much came through, as Laura said, improvisation. So taking the words and looking at the rhythm, how that translated into musical ideas and how the meaning of the words then influences the type of atmosphere you create. So we had a series of workshops, a residential weekend, and the primary schools had some poetry and creative thinking workshops. Now, they were meant to form the choir for our big live culmination performance in Ambleside that we haven't been able to do. So we've included some of their poetry as part of the film that they wrote. So Dan's role, as well as kind of looking with the young composers at the kind of environmental sounds, he worked with students from Sandgate School who have profound multiple learning disabilities, and with Annie there. And used the sounds they created on the sound walk to explore their responses, using quite an old bit of tech kit actually called a sound beam, which responds to very small movements, and you can program it with sounds and it comes out with a visual response as well. So he used that to explore all those environmental sounds, find out what they like, and it actually becomes an instrument within the piece and is used has a section in its own right, really, with a bit of an improvisatory solo. So that kind of all fed in. And again, we had a wonderful session on the residential west. About 5 or 6 students and their families from Sandgate came along with the young composers, and we just spent the afternoon making music together. And the young composers shared the music they created, and then we just played, and it was just beautiful because, how often do you get to just all be together with professional orchestral musicians, really skilled tutors from the Music Hub, and a group of young composers, and some of them were absolutely amazing, just naturally understood of how to engage with them, their peers really, who were in a quite challenging situation, some of them. So as you can see with COVID, our plans for a big culmination concert have gone awry, as many things have, and we finished the creative work on Zoom and Zoom workshops, with Laura sharing the score and the MIDI file, so that young composers could feed back on the kind of more fully formed piece and tweak it as they did. And we decided to make a mini film last year so that they had a bit of an end point to the creative process. So we worked with them and they produced a 5-minute film, the beginning of which you saw at the beginning of the film. So we were hoping to have a live performance, and we were always going to record the live performance so that it could go in Wordsworth Grasmere's Dudden exhibition. So in the end, we've pivoted to it being a performance film, which is the beginning of which you saw, which has been in the exhibition this summer. So you can go and see it in situ at Wordsworth Grasmere, or you can watch it on YouTube. But yeah, as I say, it's been one of those very long projects due to COVID, and we've pivoted and had multiple versions of how we are going to complete it. But I think the end result is the young composers have written a fantastic piece of music, and it's really beautiful. And Alyssa, who you saw at the beginning, the very end of the piece, which I'm not going to play you because I don't want to spoil it, so you can listen to the whole piece, is a beautiful folk song, the tunes of Dudden Banks, which she sings on her own with the orchestra, and it's a beautiful, beautiful folk song anyway. And we were so thrilled that Alyssa was able to join us in Ambleside. It was my first, the recording session was my first live music for over a year. So it's one of those things that will live with me for quite some time, I think. Just that feeling of being in the room with musicians making beautiful music, and especially so that it's fantastic music written by young people. So we're incredibly proud of what they do. So I hope, on the theme of well-being, that you could all get a cup of tea and spend half an hour just immersing yourself in the soundscape that they've created and enjoying it. So, yeah, anyone have any questions they want to fire at me?
I have to say, Becky, it is beautiful. It's really beautiful, and the variety of work in it, astonishing. Yeah. I mean, Laura, the composer, said, I didn't have to really compose anything. The young composers wrote so much material. We'd only asked for a 10-minute piece, which normally these kind of things, that's the maximum you get on co-created pieces. But they produced so much quality material. It's, a 20+ minute piece of music with multiple movements. Richard has a question. He's asking, are there any lessons about working physically and digitally that you'll continue to adopt in the future?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Orchestras Live does is we particularly want to work with communities who don't get access to orchestral experiences. So we don't work in any of the big cities where orchestras live and do lots of work. And I think for us, that hybrid way of working is something that we will keep exploring, particularly working with a group of young people who are already, as a group, like a youth ensemble, because we had a big digital project, Share Sound, where that creative process online on Zoom actually worked quite well. But I think we're evaluating that at the moment, and some of the learning, I think, is that you can start that creative process digitally, writing music and things, but then you do want that live workshop experience where there you've got musicians, you can try out ideas, you can hear them in real time. So I think to enable us to do more on, there's never lots of money, is there, for any of us? So I think it will be a way of maybe enabling extending that creative process a little bit through online working. But I don't think musically it's a replacement at all, because I think that live experience of being in the room and improvising together and playing music together is very hard to replicate. You can do things creatively on Zoom really well, but it is different. So I think for us as musical organisations, there's lots of learning we'll take forward kind of along, and experimenting still as well in terms of what works.
How was it collaborating with a sound artist, with Dan, and then, full-time professional musicians? And you said a little bit about that, but...
Yeah, I always think it's great to have a varied group of creative people in the room, and they all bring different things to the process. And, as you all know Dan well, I'm sure, many of you, and, he's a fantastic artist, and being able to hear and listen to different things in the environment, I think that gave a depth to that part, because you can walk around a place and look at it and make, get a feel for things, but actually listening to it and walking and listening was a very different thing. And I was quite worried when we went on the sound walk, because all the young composers were deadly serious the whole time. I was like, this is meant to be the fun bit. You all look like you're not enjoying it. And then I was chatting to them afterwards, and they're like, no, we were really, really listening. So that kind of knowledge and his technical expertise have been really useful, but actually, having his expertise in terms of bringing together things visually on a film, through his networks and colleagues and things has been fantastic, because he's been that linchpin all the way through the process along with Laura, so that what's produced at the end is although it's different to what we planned originally, creatively it's reflecting all the kind of input we put in at the beginning in those themes.
Does anyone have any other questions for Becky? Do wave or bung them in chat. In the meantime, I'll just ask you, Becky, what's next?
What's next? Well, I mentioned our Share Sound project, which we've had for this year. If you didn't see the finale in July, we will be putting the Found in Darkness piece up on YouTube again at some point this autumn. It is a fantastic rock orchestral fusion piece they've written. Completely love it. And one of the young composers who introduced it on the film said, "I think this reflects our Cumbria nature. Enjoy." So, they've written a fabulous piece, but I think my colleague Jan listened to it and she said there's something about the music that young people in Cumbria write that's very Cumbrian, but it's really hard to put your finger on what that actually is. So we're going to be continuing with the Music Hub, that kind of composition theme. We're hoping to work with a group of young composers again in the spring with a bit of a hybrid composition project, kind of taking the learning from Share Sound and the Cumbria Calling projects we've done, mixing that up and trying it in a slightly different format. And the youth orchestra will then be performing a whole selection of the co-created pieces at their summer concert. So we'll be working with the RPO again on that. We've just been working with Barra in their placations with Northern Chamber Orchestra, and I know Danielle, you probably met some of them when you were there, because you were there too. Getting people to think about what an orchestra can do for them, vote on pieces they might like to hear in the concert in October. So we're kind of I'm waiting for an email from Daniel to go, this is what the consultation said, here we go, and we can start those creative conversations for what we might plan from here and where to go. So yeah, there's always lots of things to do and lots of interesting conversations to have, as always, in Cumbria.
Well, thank you, Becky. That was absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Thank you. Yes. And a brilliant segue as well, because next week, I believe Dan from Barrow Culture is on. Tom's back in the chair. We've got some parish notices, I think, Amy. Just reminders about the website.
Yep. I've just quickly popped again the links in for the survey. That'll really help us if you've got 5 minutes to fill it in, because we do need funding to keep going, to keep these meetings going, to keep the newsletter going, to keep the network going. So that really will help. And obviously, as Stefan said, you can create a profile as well. Just see what happens there. See if you can network, just through the website. You might be able to make some collaborations. And also, just to mention that the thanks to everyone that sent images in. A while back, we put an image call out asking people to send 3 images in, which we can create an image bank, so we can have true Cumbrian images on the website, which reflect all of the different people, individual artists, organisations, festivals and everything. So if you have a look on the website and just scroll to the bottom, the lovely slide-in image carousel at the bottom is now featuring most of the images that were sent in. So we kept them to about 50, and we will be sharing them on Instagram as well. On Instagram, we'll actually be able to tag people as well, which would be nice, so that everybody can find out who it is and see who's behind the wonderful images. So that's about it. That's about it from me.
Fabulous, thank you. So links in the chat, on the chat in case you need reminding, 3 little dots if you'd like to save it, down at the bottom there. So there's the link to the full film, which is absolutely beautiful.